Welcome to another episode on how to break into tech. Today we have Paul Goldbaum, ex-CTO of Seedtag and now founder of Lightbase. So Paul, thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thanks for having me.
Helping other people navigate and survive the difficult world of interviews. So thank you again. And before we deep dive into how the hiring processes work, your story is fascinating. You started as an engineer at IBM. And then you joined Seedtag at a very early stage, and then to become a CTO. And then you became a founder. So tell us a little bit about your fascinating career journey.
So I knew very early on I was going to do tech. I think it was like 14 or something.
How did you know?
I don't know. There were always computers at home. So I guess it was just, it came to be. It was like, I don't know. I found fascinating how they worked, and, it felt like magic. What computers were doing, it was like, okay, I need to know how this works. So very early on, I knew what I wanted to do, and started out during university. I was working for like a department which was financed by IBM, and then went on to do a couple things. I did something in telecoms, and then immediately I joined Seedtag. It was like very obvious that it was a winning team, so immediately signed on as I learned about them, and from then I ended up becoming the CTO shortly after I joined. Was there for about 10 years, close to 10 years. Amazing story, super impressive growth, and very proud of what we accomplished there. I did know though that I was always meant to build something by myself. So after taking some time off after Seedtag, decided to start Lightbase, and that's where the whole like founder journey begins.
Wow. And what does Lightbase do for the audience?
It's AI for software engineering teams. Basically, we accelerate the day-to-day flows of how they work. We help with onboarding. We help with the day-to-day tasks when they're developing new things. What we do is that we understand their whole code base, and then we build an agent that understands the code base better than pretty much anyone in the team, and then support their day-to-day tasks with that.
Cool. And how did your experience as CTO like shaped the decision to become a founder? Meaning, like, was it then when you found the problem that you're trying to solve at Lightbase? How did you come up with the idea?
I mean, partly yes. As the CTO, you end up seeing a lot of what it takes to scale a company, and you end up figuring out, and you notice how you have to deal with certain things as the complexity of the code base scales. In our case, it's very technical in this case, obviously. And so that was something, the problem that we're solving with Lightbase is something that we suffered and went through ourselves. But it was only after, taking distance and then thinking about it and thinking about how AI could help with different problems is where that sort of crystallized into the idea that Lightbase is.
That's good. And for our audience, we have a lot of people that are with us in GoGoTechie that are career shifters. So in your opinion, what are the main drivers that made you change from one decision to the other, from one company to the other? What do you take into consideration to make career changes? Is it the learning curve, the people that are surrounding you? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So in my case, I was always, I honestly don't know where it comes from, but I always had this thing where I knew I wanted to build something. I don't know, it's, on the one hand, I don't think I'm made to work for someone else. I don't know. But
especially once you have tried,
exactly,
it's actually quite difficult.
Exactly. So that was the main driver to start something. There was this, I guess, innate thing where it was like, okay, I want to make something that has some sort of impact in the world, and I want to bring it to fruition. So I think that was the main driver for this. In other cases, when I changed roles, it was probably a mix of, as you said, like learning curve. When you feel like you've gotten everything you could get from, in terms of learning from something. That was for me, I guess, the biggest driver.
Yeah, 100% for me is exactly the same. For those that are going to be listening, and you're a very good example for this advice, but why do you think people should go into the tech industry? Not only tech as tech roles, also non-tech roles, but inside the tech industry, in the sense that when I was at university, for many years, everybody wanted to go into consultancy, into banking, into more traditional careers, right? That is shifting. What's your perspective on that? And why would you recommend someone to enter the tech industry? If you do recommend someone to enter the tech industry.
Yes, no, I do 100%. Also, that's pretty much my experience. And university was very driven, or you always felt sort of pushed towards consultancy jobs. I guess part of it has to do with, some of our teachers were even working for consultancy companies. So I think there's this sort of thing where these consultancy companies have these agreements.
And also the tech industry was not what it is today.
Exactly, yeah.
So there were no startups, there were no scale-ups. It was
100%. And why I would recommend it. To me, it's just, product in general, technology products specifically is just so much more rewarding, in my opinion. In consultancy, etc., it's just you sort of build or you sort of analyze something and you hand it off to the company and then you don't see it through, right? While in product, again, digital or otherwise, you see the whole process, you fight to understand what exactly it should be, you sort of see it through, you put it out there, whether it's amazing or it sucks, but you just put it out there, it's your thing. And particularly in tech, because we're not constrained by, the limitations of physical assets, iterating is so much faster. You can build something in very little time with very little resources, and it's just so much more
invigorating.
Exactly.
Yeah, the fast speed is insane.
So I would 100% recommend it.
Yeah, me too. However, now I want to talk about what is happening. Like everything is like, I keep reading how everything is evolving at a very fast speed. At the same time, businesses are saying that, it's very hard to hire. But when you talk to job seekers, they say it's very hard to find opportunities. So what's happening in this world? How are you living this change, this shift towards the recruitment and the hiring processes?
I think there's largely two effects, and from my point of view, I think there's like two effects going on. One is we're all sort of adjusting to what this whole AI thing means, and that's for sure. And it is going to, and it is already disrupting some work or some roles, for sure. I think though it's a bit inflated though, and because there's this other effect where we had this post-COVID like hiring spree, everyone went super crazy hiring people, and then I think now it's like things are getting back to normal, and there's a bit of a correction in that sense. And I think it doesn't help that CEOs sound smarter by saying, "Oh no, AI is optimizing our processes," than by saying, "I overhired and now I need to fire or no, stop hiring."
Yeah, no,
So
absolutely.
I think it's a bit of both. So that's I think why right now we're seeing less hiring, and or less open positions. Long term, we'll see, because obviously AI is here to stay, and the impact is for sure something that's going to be growing more and more as it becomes more capable and as we build more around, on top of AI. But I think the impact right now is a bit overblown by the second effect.
Yeah, so do I. I absolutely agree, and I also think that a lot of people are scared by the titles of AI is going to take our jobs.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it's AI is also going to create a whole different bunch of jobs that we don't know which ones are they right now. So the important thing from the perspective of starting your career is actually, going with the market, being updated enough to shift your capabilities, your learning path towards being capable to fit into the new market, because that's happening. But that doesn't mean that all the jobs are going to disappear.
100%. And, it's important that, we see it all the time. Like AI right now is especially for the most creative use cases. The cases that we're seeing where it's disrupting more is those where, it was sort of a mechanical process, and, even having added a bit of intelligence to our tools already made a lot of jobs, day-to-day jobs more easier or more automatable. But it's still going to be important for the foreseeable future that the human driver is has the deep expertise, the domain expertise, has the creative driver's seat for everything. So I think that's largely still there, and I don't foresee that we'll be all jobless in the very short term future.
100%, I agree. Before we move into the hiring process, and you know me well enough to actually understand that I'm obsessed with the topic that I'm going to introduce. So before we deep dive into the hiring process thing, GoGoTech's mission is basically one of the missions that we have is to reduce the gap between how universities teach you for the workforce versus what actually companies are expecting from the candidates, right? How do you think, do you agree with that statement, and how universities should be way more adapting to what's happening in the market?
There's agree with a part of that. My experience, which it's starting to go way back, I'm feeling old, is that
Well, don't ask me.
So the my experience there was we got a lot of the fundamentals, the theoretical stuff in university. Obviously a large part of the day-to-day stuff, which is what the companies need, and what's going to be your day-to-day, that was largely missing, of course. It is. I still feel that part, the theoretical part is important. That's always when in many discussions where we're thinking about problems, etc. That's very often what I bring to the table. The fact that I have like this deep understanding of how certain things work. So I would not like write off the knowledge that you get from those years. But 100%, there is definitely a gap between once you leave university and then that you're ready to sort of do a good job. That's there. It can be either soft skills, it can be like the practical what it means to do this job specifically, what are the skills that I need, etc. All of that is largely missing right now from
100%. And the gap is going bigger and bigger with the technology going at that rapid scale. So I think there is I fully understand the debate of some universities talking about that, they don't have to only focus on employability, but also on a social mission. And I get that. University is very important for that too. Yeah. But at the rapid scale that the market is shifting, they 100% need to readapt the programs.
But things are changing so fast. I can understand how it's going to be difficult for them to.
100%.
We don't even know what jobs are going to be like in 5 years. So today these universities are preparing the people who will be in the market in 5 years, and we don't really know what jobs are going to be. So yeah,
it's a difficult thing, but yeah. How would you describe when you used to hire at Seedtag? Mm-hmm. How would you describe the hiring process versus, for example, now? How are you hiring at Lightbase?
Mm-hmm. Obviously, completely different.
Different stages too.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the main differences between the hiring process of like Lightbase today and what it was, or it currently keep doing at Seedtag is the fact that you need to scale the hiring process, right? For example, right now at Lightbase, it's a super simple process. Like I do it all myself, and it's like one initial call, sort of introduction, where I'm more like presenting the company, getting to know, understanding at a very high level if we're a right fit. And then basically I have like a 2-hour face-to-face meeting with them where we're like talking about life and about solving technical problems together, etc. And with that I know exactly if that person's a right fit, or that's so far it's gone great.
But tell me more about that. How do you sense that person is a great fit?
So that's largely down to the values. I would say I basically look for like 3 things probably. Number 1 is if that person is a doer, whether he does things or he just speaks or just doesn't do anything.
Just learn the script or actually does something. Yeah,
exactly.
And how do you test that? By a business case?
No, in tech roles, I sort of have the person speak about their experience, in different circumstances that they've gone through their life. And obviously technically, or in a job, I would say, how they responded to certain situations, when something went terribly wrong, what did you do?
How did they act?
I usually do those sort of things. So I'd say number 1 that I'm testing is whether that person is a doer. Second is technical ability. Obviously, we're a small team, and then like everyone has to pull their weight. So obviously, we need to be able to rely on people just being able to execute the things like diligently, and that they obviously that we don't need to support them. It's not like they're going to be on their own, but obviously we need to be able to count on them to come up with the right things. And then number three would be that they're just generally nice people.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, you're going to spend many hours together. It's going to be stress. There's going to be tons of uncertainty.
Absolutely.
It better is someone you enjoy legitimately enjoy working with.
Exactly.
So yeah, I would say that's the three things.
And people hire people, and at the end of the day, you want to hang out with nice people. Also, capability to learn fast. It's also we used to at Google. I remember that they didn't really, especially for junior positions, they didn't really care about how much knowledge about the digital ecosystem you had profoundly in regarding product itself, but they really cared about how fast you would be able to learn. Like the capacity of learning, of adapting, and curiosity was something essential. Going back to when I do the courses or when I teach, sometimes I feel that I talk about common mistakes, and in my head they sound so obvious. But then I realize when I interview people that they keep falling into the same common mistakes.
Yep.
Okay, which are your common mistakes? Each one of us. I mean, there are plenty.
Yeah.
But
Once I've seen
for
them.
me, for example, the lack of preparation is a huge one. Like the lack of research, because for me, it's a lack of motivation, a lack of attitude. But then no asking questions at the end of the interview is another one. But tell me yours. What are your red flags?
Probably. So the most common ones, let's say during the process, is probably not speaking out loud while you're thinking. Again, this might be very tech specific.
It is very interesting because you get a case, and the process is the journey. Like they're evaluating the journey.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. 100%. Obviously, if you weren't prepared enough, it's going to show, and that's you're not going to save it by not speaking. But if you are thinking about the problem you're given, and you're just sitting there in complete silence, not saying anything, you might be stuck on a detail that I'm not really interested about. Like that's not really a blocker. I might be able to just help you with that, and because that's not what I'm testing for, let's say. But the fact that you're just sitting there in silence, A, makes the whole thing super awkward, but B, it leaves the opportunity, it leaves on the table, the opportunity on the table to just helping you, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to speaking out, and then walking me through your process, etc., thought process. That's again, as you were saying, it's
the journey.
It's the journey. It's like actually what I'm testing for, very much.
Yeah.
I would say that's thing number one. Probably second mistake. Yeah, coming unprepared is probably a big one. I usually before we have the conversation, I usually give some hints to the interviewee about what we're gonna do. It's not like something you're gonna have to study up or something, but if you're doing an interview in technology and for your position, there's a certain amount of things that you should, your toolkit should be at hand, let's say, in terms of like technical knowledge, etc. So you probably know the skills that you're going to be asked for during the interview, and being a bit prepared for that, and also obviously the company, and having at least some background is always useful. It makes
100%.
things flow much more naturally. And the third thing could be, obviously an interview is going to be it's a difficult situation. It's you're being sort of observed, and you're being judged to a degree, and obviously that's normal. It is what an interview is, right? But both sides know that, but some people tend to not be prepared for that very much, and then they just become super shy, or they become super small, and that leads then to maybe not speaking out loud about your thought process, etc. So one of the things obviously we're asking, as I was saying before, right, we're looking for during the process is this a nice person, right? And I'm obviously looking for any sort of red flags or something about, that being a difficult person to work with or that sort of thing. So just making an extra effort to be nice in terms of like being aware. We both know it's again, like it's a difficult situation, and I will do my best. I hope every good interview does this, where it's like make it as comfortable for the person as
100%.
possible. Remove the load as much as
There's no need to play the butt cop.
Exactly.
I always say that. Like, we all have been there. We know how much you suffer.
Yeah.
Just make things easy.
Make it as easy as you can. It's like,
and also because you also need to sell the company.
Yep.
It's a bilateral relationship. They also need to choose you.
Yeah.
So, I'm playing the bad cop. I've never,
Exactly. You don't get anything out of it. You make the candidate much more tense. You don't get to see their best self. So, and you might be losing good candidates, A, because you think you're an idiot and they don't want to work with you, or B, because you created a situation that set them up for failure and inevitably they failed. So
Absolutely.
if you make it easier, then obviously that's on the interviewer's side. But then
Absolutely.
Obviously from the candidate, I would say, it's going to be, you're going to be nervous. You're going to be, you're going to tense up, etc. But just make the extra effort to try to normalize and just breathe before it and make it as, as easy as and as an easiest situation as you can. Because just you're going to work better, the results are going to be better, and you get probably you create a better impression of what you really are versus who you are in a super
absolutely
situation.
a better experience. And also you can be tough while being nice.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Anyway, now I wanted to ask you because you said something very, very interesting here, and I train my students with tricky questions. Like you said, for example, I give them a case where there is a lot of information missing to be able to respond in an accurate way. And 90% of the students that haven't been trained to interview before, they jump right into the answer, right? So that's very interesting, the tip that you gave, because, you're going to hire someone that asks you the right questions and acknowledges that there are information missing. So I always say the same, don't be afraid to ask questions to the interviewer, because that might be the secret to having the right answer.
That in itself is actually a criteria during the hiring process.
Exactly.
Is he just blindly trying to solve something which makes no sense, or he has like incomplete information or whatever? The questions you're asking are actually informing me about how you are thinking about
your
the
critical
process.
thinking.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So it's like, it's not a bad thing. On the contrary, if you don't ask any questions, I can guarantee you're going to come up with a shitty answer, like 100%.
100%. For me, that's one of the biggest red flags. Like I trick with these questions just to make sure that, some information is missing and they're not afraid to ask. Talking about this, we talked about common mistakes. Now let's talk a little bit about the best candidate's mindset and preparation. Give me an example of, how you think that works, or an example of one specific person that blew your mind at an interview. Like, what's the mindset or preparation that you think are going to make candidates stand out?
So obviously, again, you're going to need to show that you have the technical, and our case technical, but just your job from foundations, right? Your skills. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult sort of to hide the fact that you don't really know how to solve something, etc. You're beating around the bush. So obviously, there's a part of making sure that you can, the technical part is there. I would say from a preparation perspective, they had obviously prepared for that sort of situations where they could bring their technical skills to shine, let's say, and they were like very prepared to be very clear about how they were thinking, speaking about it, right? So the first part is like how they were thinking about it and solving it. And then one case, for example, that I know where things like where it blew my mind is I think it was more an attitude thing, where it's like, an interview, and you said that before, an interview is a two-way street, right? We're both sides trying to assess if we want to work together. That doesn't mean that, you start going in like an asshole. The same thing, you don't want an asshole interviewer. You don't want to come up as an asshole yourself. But I think the best interviews have been where the candidate clearly knew the stance, and that this was like a two-sided thing, and he was actively looking to understand if the company was a good fit for him or her. Again, not from a bad situation, like more from a hey, I want this to work. So from a positive attitude. So I want this to work, but let's try to see if we would have fun and we would like collaborate well together, in the job, and so yeah, I mean, having that sort of attitude, I think is critical. The best interviews I've had, the candidate clearly had this very much in mind, and it just made for a better interview all around. They were asking the right questions, not just about the technical side of things, but also like for me, and how do you think about this and that and whatever. It just makes a much nicer conversation.
Absolutely. No, you're right. And all these things that we're mentioning, at the end of the day, if we think about it, like they're the basics, right? Like, showing a good attitude, coming out like prepared. And I remember having David Alonso here in the podcast, and a way to stand out, especially now, it was about showing value before you're asked to do an assignment, meaning coming back to the interview, having thought about, these guys might have this problem or this challenge. So I'm going to give them this free exercise, showing, again, attitude on, I can go above and beyond. And that's why I'm the best candidate.
Yep.
So that was one example. Now, one of my favorite topics nowadays, you obviously, as a statement from what I know you're a candidate, if you would be interviewing now for companies that are clearly strongly hired, right? Now, here are two things. AI. People are using AI for interviews, and that's absolutely fine. We have a course that actually teaches you what AI tools to actually use, but we make sure that they understand that AI can definitely help you, but it's never going to get you hired.
Yep.
So if you go back, like a few years back, how did you prepare for high-stake interviews, and how would you prepare now? Meaning, what type of advice would give you to candidates? Because I see a lot of students that have prepared the interview with AI and it's a mess. What do you what's your perspective on that?
There's a ton of things that that probably change, and obviously in engineering, there's this extra case where AI has had a massive impact in engineering roles, just because we now have AI typing a lot of the code, so it's just so it's obviously there. And in engineering interviews, for example, you get very often companies do the take-home exercise, where you're given an exercise that you get to solve yourself in a certain amount of time or whatever. You get a couple days to do it, and you hand it in. And obviously for that specific part, if you didn't use AI, I would not hire you.
Yeah, 100%.
That would be like having a very nice tool at your disposal that is going to make you 10 times more effective, and deciding not to use it. So that's telling me a lot about the attitude, right? Which sounds counterintuitive, but
no, it's actually true. Like, one of the questions that I teach my students is like, tell me or guide me through the AI tools that you use on a daily basis. Right. And if they tell me none of them, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, you need to optimize your time. You need to be faster.
There's a lot of very mechanical tasks. There's a lot of stuff where you could just leverage AI. So for me, it's a red flag if you're not using them. Now, AI shouldn't be a substitute for thinking, and again, as you were saying, sort of preparing for it. So I would leverage it 100% to anything that has to do with research, like being able to cover larger amounts of information to get prepared for your interview. Like, look up things about the company, at what stage are they, whatever. Like, there's a lot of information that you can gather up front, which is just going to make such a good impression if you just go in and that stuff. And it now takes you like literally 5 minutes to prepare for that. Like, it's just a prompt away of knowing anything, or pretty much everything you need to know about the company. So obviously, any sort of upfront research, again, for coding specific questions using AI. But again, it's not going to be a substitute, for hiring.
100%.
It's important that, if you're handing in an exercise, which has been done with AI, you should be able to defend it 100% as if you had written it, right? Why? What are the the trade-offs that you made? Why did you do this sort of approach versus this other approach? How did you solve for X? Did you keep in mind that the context for whatever?
Yeah.
So it's still important that you are well prepared to defend that, and that it's obvious that you're not delegating the thinking to the AI. It's still you, and you're bringing your deep expertise, etc. And you're just making sure the AI is making you more effective, but
Absolutely. Like I have this example, like I was training a student the other day, and it was an interview for a tech company, and one of the competitors was IBM. One of the questions was, what does this company have that IBM doesn't? And basically, when I told the student to research competitors, which was obviously that's something that AI is going to give you in a way faster way, like what he said is very important. Like it doesn't substitute the thinking in the sense that, the person that is going to interview doesn't want to know the difference between IBM and the companies. Like, why are they asking you that? Like, what are the key selling points? You need to go far and beyond. And people, I have the feeling that number one, they don't know how to use the AI. They don't know how to prompt like in like a more effective way. And second, they think all the answers that AI gives them are valid, substituting the thinking behind the questions that are being asked. So I also ask my students to be very careful because, also a lot of people have access to AI. So everyone is going to get the same answers. So you need to find a way to, put your critical thinking out there and make sure that you stand out. Now, moving into like a fast-paced environment, such as, a startup, a scale-up, and you have a lot of experience on that. We have talked about qualities that candidates should have. What qualities should a candidate have for a startup and a scale-up versus a large corporation? Because it works in a completely different way. And, I always say that not any of the decisions are better than the other one, but there are differences. And there is, when job searching, there's a huge part of self-awareness as well. You can be miserable if you don't fit as a person. So what are for you the qualities needed in a fast-paced environment?
Yeah. Obviously my career has always been like in smaller companies to scale up. So I myself know I wouldn't fit in a large sort of enterprise. But I have a big bias towards those sorts of companies. So I would say, again, it's in these environments, very often you're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. So being able to just sit with that and be happy with not having everything super detailed, that's very, and there being, you might be building a product and it might not work out and you might have to change it. Or, there's a lot of experimenting in terms of like testing a hypothesis and then throwing it away, being happy and being okay with that. That's going to be, super important. And it might be a bit different. And it was definitely different, for example, at Seedtag later on where, the mission, or the direction of the company was clear. There's obviously still experimenting, but the overall sort of theme, how things are going to go, it's much more predictable, let's say, versus a very early stage company where it's like everything is chaos and things might change from one day to the next super quickly. So being able to sit with that uncertainty is key. Again, like the doer thing, it's being able to just take anything. Nothing is outside of your job description, I would say. Being able to be okay with pretty much, taking any problem.
Yeah.
Exactly. Being able to just take any problem and say, okay, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to make it work. That's super important.
Yeah.
We're not, we don't, very often in these companies, there's no specific role. You might not have an HR department yet. So you're doing all the sourcing and you're doing, all the screening of candidates, etc. So, well, that's the job. So being, happy with that. And it's something that it's not just being okay with it. It's like you actively have to look forward to it. Like being, not being constrained by an existing structure. Obviously, at the larger company, you cannot just go and do, sourcing and screening because the HR department is going to say like, hey, no, you shouldn't do that. Like that's our job or whatever, right? It's just one example. But looking out to, wanting to do that and just putting yourself out there and just bringing up initiatives. That's how happens to me all the time from the team. Like, hey, we didn't think about this. Do you mind if I take this? And like, just go.
Yeah, please.
So that's, yeah, exactly. So if you enjoy that sort of thing, then it's definitely, you're
Yeah.
gonna have a much better time. It's gonna be so much more rewarding.
Yeah, it's very much related to what I always say, right? Like you need to enjoy the fear of not knowing what you're doing, in the sense that in that fast paced environment, you also face a lot of insecurities because there's so many things that you don't know where to start, or you can be even really bad at it.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how you learn way faster what you're really good at and what you're really not good at. But I always say it, like you have to be that person that doesn't fear to face their incapabilities.
100%. And that's ties into the whole founder journey as well. Right? Like the being like, you're gonna suck at it. I'm sorry if you didn't expect that, but you're gonna suck at it at first. Just do it. Like nothing's gonna prepare you for that thing more than just doing it, sucking at it, failing, and then doing it again, sucking again, and then doing it 10 times until you sort of get marginally better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was gonna ask you about this right now, actually, because I wanted to, we see a lot of news and we're like overwhelmed by everything that we see at LinkedIn, and it's we're surrounded by supposedly like a lot of success, and and students, career shifters, or even MBAs, they suffer from that, right? When you feel at some point it's like I'm not there yet. So I also tell them like take the bullshit out. So let's take the bullshit out. Tell me something about being because CTO sounds amazing. Tell me something about being a CTO that you didn't enjoy doing, that actually sucked.
A lot of it. It's hard. So it's a tough job. It's very rewarding, but the glamour of it or the nice things about it are sort of there's a lot of stuff to that doesn't. It's an 80-20 where most things are actually sort of very hard. First of all, especially in my experience as we were growing, and it's probably the case for many other people, is that just the role of the CTO isn't really defined. It's very difficult to pin down exactly, give a super precise definition of what a CTO is, because it changes so much based on the type of company it is, the type of product the company
The amount
has,
of people that you have
the
under
amount
you.
of people, the stage of the company. It's so different, and there's sort of no instruction manual for that. And I can guarantee you, like I read everything I could find about it, and it still was miserable. So finding out who you have to be as a CTO at every point in time, and it changes almost from one week to the next. That was hard. So that's one of the things. One thing that I hope that was a big learning for me, and I hope it's useful for other people as well, is like finding a mentor is game changer 100%.
Same as a founder as well.
Exactly. Finding mentors is just, they've gone through it. They can just speak with you about it. Very often it feels kind of lonely. One of the other things that sucks a lot about being a CTO is that you're always sort of the nerdy guy in the seaboard in the sea level. So, and it's sort of lonely, and it's kind of complicated. So having someone as a mentor who's gone through it, who knows what the feeling is, who can help you think through the challenges that appear. There's all sorts of challenges, technical, people wise, and site managing and managing up. It's all
Politics sometimes
as the company grows. 100%. Very often, because again, like technical people were very often not like the most socially, our emotional, quotient isn't very often the highest. So dealing with that sort of politics and stuff throws us off a lot. And so yeah, having someone who helps you with that is definitely useful. So I would say, like, the finding out your role, the whole, how to manage change, etc. What you have to be, the sort of loneliness of the role. That's, I think, some of the hardest things.
Yeah, to navigate the loneliness is hardcore. We always close to the closing of the podcast, we always talk about the main drivers of a successful career, right? And we have divided it into like 4 different buckets. One is talent, second is hard work, third one is network, and fourth one is luck.
Mm-hmm.
So, in your opinion, among your career, not from your experience,
Uh,
but from everything that you have seen,
mhm.
what's the order of importance of those four?
I think I only heard one thing there, which is hard work. From that list, I think so. Having a successful career, I think having is means is understanding what you're shooting for, right? And saying, okay, I want to accomplish X, and then just working crazy amount of hours to make it work. And this means a lot of different things. This is especially true, or is very true so as a founder, but this is true across the board, right? It might be you want to you want to pass an exam to become a lawyer or a doctor, or you want to just get to a certain company and prepare and make sure that you have a role at one of the big 10 companies, whatever it is, right? It's you set your goals, and then you work so hard that you make it's impossible that you're not going to get it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And whatever it takes, if it's, you said networking, for example, okay, if network is might be important for some roles, maybe less so for some objectives, let's say, or some it might be more important for some roles than others. If that's the thing that's going to make it work, then yeah, you do it, but then you work at it, right? It's like,
Yeah, it's very related. Working on your network is also hard working.
exactly, it's
So
part of the hard work.
it's part of the hard work.
And luck, I mean, luck, I don't think it's a big factor, in the sense that if you're doing enough and you're doing everything you can to make sure that you get there, inevitably, and you might have bad luck, right? Obviously, it could be the case that you have an accident or
It's
something
like a
terrible.
consequences of the hard work.
Exactly. But usually, unless it's like a sort of terrible thing that happened to you, which, okay, that might work, that might happen. Unless it's that, it's just a fact of just making sure you get there by doing everything that's in your hand, and working hard to get that. So I think it's all only boils down to pretty much that.
Yeah, 100%. Now, for example, you talked about soft skills before, the World Economic Forum. Okay, they're saying that basically the most demanded skills from here to the next 5 years are purely going to be soft skills, like critical thinking, communication. Does that affect an engineer career or not with all the AI revolution? Like, how does AI also impact the engineering career? Question number one. And question number two, based on your answer also, what advice would you give to someone? Imagine I'm 25, I just finished my engineering career.
Yep.
What advice would you give me in that context?
So is AI going to affect the engineering career? It's already doing it. It's very obvious. It's been a lot of effort from the AI companies has gone into making engineering roles better, in my opinion. So 100% it affects it. So what it means in the engineering career is that inevitably the role changes. It's now, the code, a lot of the time of engineering is spent, or has historically been spent, actually typing out the code, right? It's like this mechanical process where you have a super big idea, you have it in your mind, you can see it, and you're just constrained to typing it out one miserable instruction at a time, and until it's there. And that's sort of what the part that AI has made so much more effective, where you can now focus on thinking, the right approach, thinking about different alternatives of how you want to build it. So honestly, the creative and fun part of the whole thing, like typing out, was never the fun part of it. It was just the only way you had to actually communicate your intentions to the machine.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. But it was never about the typing. It was more about that. So it inevitably changes it. I guess I would say for the better. And what that means for engineers moving forward is that they should be able to, or they should develop better skills at being able to understand the business constraints very often, being more let's say stakeholder or customer facing. They should be happy with that, and should develop the abilities needed to be to do that job successfully, because now they can just they have teams that they can manage, teams of AIs that they can manage, right? So it's right now engineering becomes about understanding, you know, what's the business objective, understanding what the constraints are, and then just being able to translate that to a set of AIs, which
Yeah.
that are going to do an amazing job doing it for you. So being able to, you know, be very creative with your solutions, you know, being able to just divide a problem into sub problems and being able to communicate that with the AIs is super important. So a lot of the soft skills, and this ties 100% into what you were saying, a lot of it is going to be about the soft skills of being able to speak openly to more people. And that's something, for example,
Yeah.
that engineers struggle with very often. That sort of the narrowing down the problem solving, you know, being better at problem solving and, you know,
And
at
communicating.
troubleshooting,
Yeah.
communicating. Yeah, that's 100% it.
Good. Love the answer. Now the closing, the last question. What's a piece of advice you wished someone had given you at the early stage of your career?
Oof. Hard one.
I'm going to give you mine. I wished someone would have told me something that I figured out later, which is, you know, you don't have to know what you want to do right away, but make sure you learn fast what you really don't want to do
That's a good one.
and be okay with it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I think it could be similar. Sounds this is going to sound like more like life advice, but same thing as you said. So that's I'm okay with that. So I would say it's probably just do the thing, right? It's like more of like just, you know, I'm by, you know, by definition pretty much I'm a big perfectionist. You know, I tend to overthink things a lot, and very often, and we were saying this before, right? Just the best way to learn something is to just do it failing and then doing it again, right? Instead of what my approach very often was, which was more like, okay, I'm going to try to be perfectly ready for this before I attempt it,
Yeah.
which is basically like negating the fact that you're going to suck at it and you being uncomfortable with sucking at things at first.
100%. And it relates a lot to being a founder. Like I struggle a lot to launch the platform because I wasn't proud of that. I was proud of the content.
Yeah.
I was proud of the product, but not the design. So, you know, and that's going to take time. Just launch it, learn from it, take feedback, you know,
And
and yeah. So thank you so much.
thanks a lot.